Commander Terran stood on the rocky plateau, staring at the valley below. Thick mist covered the ground, curling around jagged stones like living fingers. This was Vera, a planet that humans had almost forgotten. Ancient star charts whispered of its secrets, and Terran had spent years following those whispers. He had promised himself he would find the tomb hidden here, no matter the danger. His heart beat fast with a mix of fear and excitement. The air was different here. Heavy, cold, and quiet, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The expedition had landed 2 days ago. Their small spacecraft rested on a narrow ledge, engines silent now. Terran's team was limited in number but skilled. Myra, his science officer, moved carefully beside him. She studied the rocks, the plants, and the strange energy readings that pulsed faintly through the valley. "Commander, the readings are unlike anything we have seen," she said, voice low. "This place feels alive." Terran nodded. He felt it too. Something powerful slept beneath the mountains. Legends spoke of civilizations older than humanity, builders of tombs so advanced that even the stars remembered them. And this tomb was said to be guarded by shadows, protectors that tested anyone who dared approach. Terran's mind raced with the possibilities. If they succeeded, the knowledge inside could change humanity forever. The team moved cautiously toward the massive stone doors at the valley's center. The stones were gray but shimmered faintly, as if holding the light in their depths. Strange symbols were carved across the doors, glowing faintly in the dim sunlight. Myra bent closer, tracing the lines with her fingers. "These markings are not just decorations," she said. "They are warnings. Whoever made this tomb wanted to keep intruders away." They spoke of guardians. Terran clenched his jaw. He had expected warnings. Every story about Vera carried the same caution. Explorers who had tried before had vanished, leaving only broken equipment behind. "We are not intruders," he said firmly. "We are explorers. We will respect the tomb, and it will not harm us." Even as he spoke, a flicker of movement at the edge of his vision made him pause. Shadows twisted along the rocks, disappearing when he turned his head. He felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold wind. He shook it off. It could be tricks of the mist. Rena, one of the younger scouts, whispered from behind. "Commander, did you see that?" Her voice trembled. She pointed toward a dark shape that seemed to hover over the stones. Terran shook his head. "Nothing," he said. "Stay focused. Every step we take matters. We do not panic here." The team continued, each step careful and deliberate. The ground was uneven, and the mist thickened as they drew closer to the doors. Strange sounds reached them, like soft whispers carried on the wind. Myra paused, listening. "It is not wind," she said. "Something is responding to us." Terran felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. He had faced many dangers, but this was different. The valley was alive with something ancient, something that watched them from every shadow. He realized that the tomb was not just stone and crystal. It was a presence, a test. As they approached the doors, Terran noticed carvings that showed figures in strange poses, holding glowing objects. He touched the stone lightly. A shiver ran through him. He could almost hear voices in his mind, faint but insistent. Myra stepped forward and examined the symbols. "These might be a key," she said. "A sequence we must follow to open the tomb. But we must be careful. The guardians are not just stories." Terran studied the carvings, memorizing patterns, shapes, and lines. The shadows around them seemed to shift, curling closer, watching. He felt a sense of being tested. The tomb did not want fools or the greedy. It wanted those who understood caution, respect, and courage. Night fell quickly over the valley. The mist thickened, and the temperature dropped. Terran ordered the team to set up a temporary camp near the stone doors. Fires were lit, but their glow barely touched the fog. From the edge of the camp, the shadows moved with a strange intelligence. Rena whispered again, pointing. "They are circling us. Watching us." Myra frowned. "We must rest. We cannot act recklessly. Whatever this is, it will not harm us if we stay calm." Terran lay on a cold rock, staring at the mist. He thought of humanity, small and fragile in a galaxy full of mysteries. He thought of the tomb and its guardians, ancient and wise. If they succeeded, they would gain knowledge that could make humans stronger, not just in power but in understanding. As he drifted into a tense, light sleep, he could feel the shadows pressing closer. But instead of fear, there was anticipation. The tomb awaited, patient and eternal. And Terran knew one thing with certainty. The adventure had only just begun. The sun rose over the misty valley, painting the jagged mountains with pale light. Terran and his team were awake before dawn, their eyes scanning the area for movement. The shadows from last night seemed to have faded, but the valley felt tense, as if holding its breath. Terran knew that the tomb was watching them. He could feel it in the way the air moved, the way the mist curled around the stones. Every sound was sharper, every shadow deeper. Myra examined the carvings on the stone doors again. Her fingers traced the patterns, glowing faintly in the early light. "These markings are complex," she said. "They are like instructions, a sequence we must follow. But I do not fully understand them yet. And the warnings, they mention guardians, shadows that protect the tomb from the unworthy." Rena shivered as she adjusted her equipment. "I do not like this place," she said quietly. "Last night, I saw the shadows move as if they were alive. They were not just shapes in the mist. They were watching, judging us." Terran nodded. He understood her fear. He had felt the same pull in his chest, a mixture of dread and curiosity. "We are explorers," he said firmly. "We have come to learn, not to destroy. The guardians are not our enemies. We must show them we are worthy." The team prepared to move closer to the tomb entrance. Their boots crunched against the rocky ground, and the mist shifted around them, almost like it was breathing. Terran felt a cold pressure at his back, and when he turned, there was nothing. The shadows seemed to react to their presence, always at the edge of vision, never fully visible. Orin, the expedition's AI, spoke in its calm, measured voice. "Commander, the energy readings in the valley indicate movement patterns that do not correspond to natural phenomena. The shadows are not illusions. They are some form of intelligence, monitoring your actions." Terran clenched his fists. "Then we must act with care. Observe, learn, and move carefully. No sudden actions. The guardians are testing us." The team reached the base of the massive stone doors. Terran examined the carvings, noting how some lines seemed to connect, forming paths that led to symbols at the center. Myra pointed to a series of small shapes. "These may be the key," she said. "If we touch them in the right order, the tomb may respond. But we must be precise." Terran nodded. He took a deep breath and touched the first symbol. The stone vibrated slightly under his fingers. A shadow near the corner of the door shifted and elongated, as if observing him. He touched the second symbol, then the third. The vibrations grew stronger. The shadows pulsed in response, moving in slow, fluid motions. Suddenly, a low hum echoed through the valley. The team froze. The shadows seemed to gather, forming humanoid shapes with glowing eyes. They did not attack. They simply stood, watching. Terran realized that the Guardians were testing more than skill. They were testing courage and control. Fear or hesitation could be dangerous. Myra swallowed hard. "They are alive," she whispered. "And they can sense our intentions." Terran steadied his voice. "Then we act with respect. We do not try to deceive them. We move carefully and with purpose. Follow me." The shadows shifted to allow a path toward the doors. It was a narrow space, surrounded by mist that seemed to thicken with every step. The team followed closely, keeping calm, their eyes never leaving the figures that guarded the tomb. Each step felt like walking through a living test, and Terran felt a mixture of awe and tension. As they approached the entrance, the air grew colder. The carvings on the doors glowed more brightly, and the shadows leaned closer, as if whispering to each other in a language humans could not hear. Myra studied the glowing patterns. "The sequence is almost complete," she said. "We must finish it together. One wrong move, and we may trigger the Guardian's full response." Terran nodded. He coordinated the team, having each member touch a symbol in turn. Their movements were synchronized, deliberate, and careful. The vibrations in the stone grew stronger until the entire door seemed to pulse with energy. The shadows paused, watching every motion. Then, slowly, the massive doors began to shift. They opened with a grinding sound that echoed through the valley, revealing a dark chamber beyond. The team froze at the threshold. Inside, the chamber was enormous, filled with faintly glowing crystals embedded in walls and floor. Shadows danced along the edges, flickering like living shapes. The air inside felt thick with energy, almost alive, as if the tomb itself breathed. Terran felt the pull of knowledge, an irresistible force calling him forward. Myra whispered, "This is only the beginning. Whatever lies inside, we must proceed with caution." Terran stepped forward first, leading the team into the tomb. The shadows moved around them, silent but ever present. They were no longer outside threats. They were guides, tests, and witnesses to the humans entering their domain. Every movement mattered. Every decision counted. As they walked deeper, Terran felt the presence of something ancient and powerful. The tomb was alive, and it knew they had arrived. And at that moment, he realized that the journey they had begun would not only test their courage but also their wisdom. Humanity's future might depend on how they faced the shadows guarding this tomb. The chamber inside the tomb was larger than Terran had imagined. The walls curved high above, covered in glowing crystals that bathed the space in a soft, shimmering light. Each crystal pulsed gently, casting shadows that twisted and danced along the walls and floor. Terran could feel the energy of the place, a quiet hum that seemed to resonate with his heartbeat. Every step they took echoed through the vast hall, but the sound was swallowed quickly by the thick, vibrating air. Myra studied the crystals carefully. "These are not ordinary minerals," she said. "They are storing energy, knowledge, or information. I cannot tell yet, but they are older than anything we have ever seen. The tomb is alive in some way." Rena moved closer to a crystal and reached out a hand. The moment her fingers hovered over it, the shadow nearest her flickered and shifted, stretching tall and thin before returning to its original shape. She pulled back quickly, startled. "They are watching everything," she whispered. They know who touches what, even before we do it. Terran nodded. He had felt it as well. The shadows were not simple shapes. They were intelligent, aware, and patient. They had allowed the humans to enter, but only to test them. One wrong move could awaken something dangerous. He turned to the team. Do not touch anything until we understand it. Observe first, then act together. This tomb does not reward recklessness. The team moved carefully into the center of the chamber. The floor beneath them was smooth, cold, and slightly translucent. Light from the crystals reflected in patterns across the walls, forming shapes that almost resembled writing. Myra knelt to study them. This looks like a language, she said. It is not words as we know them. It is patterns of energy, communicating ideas, history, and possibly instructions. We may be able to decode it if we pay close attention. As they advanced, Terran noticed that the shadows were no longer just at the edges of the chamber. They began to move in closer, following the humans with slow, careful steps. Some formed humanoid shapes, their glowing eyes fixed on each member of the team. Terran felt a chill, but he forced himself to remain calm. Fear would be their enemy here. He instructed the team to focus on observation, to remain steady, and to watch for patterns in the shadows' movements. Suddenly, one of the larger crystals began to pulse more brightly, sending a beam of light across the floor. The light touched a symbol on the far wall, and it glowed in response. Myra gasped. The crystals are connected. They react to each other and to our presence. This is more than a tomb. It is a network, a system designed to test and teach anyone who enters. Terran stepped forward carefully. The Guardians do not attack unless provoked, he said. They want us to learn, not to destroy. We must move with respect. The shadows shifted again, forming a path toward a stairway carved into the far wall. The steps were wide and smooth, descending into deeper darkness. Terran led the team down slowly, feeling the weight of the tomb around them. The air grew colder, heavier, and the faint hum of energy became louder, resonating through their bones. Every sound they made seemed amplified in the stillness. At the bottom of the stairs, they entered a smaller chamber. The walls were covered in murals that glowed faintly in the crystal light. The images showed figures in strange suits, building massive structures, and navigating ships among the stars. Terran stared in awe. This civilization was far beyond us, he whispered. They explored galaxies, built technology we cannot imagine, and recorded everything here. Myra studied the murals carefully. These symbols match the patterns in the crystals, she said. They are instructions, history, and guidance. The tomb is not just a resting place. It is a teaching tool. The shadows are its protectors, ensuring only those who are worthy can learn its secrets. A sudden movement in the shadows caught Terran's attention. One figure separated from the rest, its glowing eyes staring directly at him. He felt an almost physical pressure, as if the shadow could see into his mind. He held his ground and met its gaze without fear. Slowly, the shadow retreated slightly, allowing the team to continue. Terran realized that courage and composure were as important as knowledge in this place. Rena whispered, "They are testing us. Every step, every choice, they are watching." Terran nodded. "Yes. And we are learning. We must remain careful, respectful, and united. Only then can we reach the heart of the tomb." The team continued deeper, guided by the shifting shadows and the glowing crystals. The chamber seemed to stretch endlessly, each step revealing new murals, symbols, and glowing stones. The tomb felt alive, a silent teacher, and the shadows were its student's guide. As they paused to rest, Terran looked around the chamber. The tomb was more than a place of secrets. It was a test of humanity's courage, intelligence, and wisdom. And in that moment, he knew the journey had only just begun. The tomb would demand more from them, and the shadows would continue to watch, ready to respond to every choice they made. The chamber inside the tomb was immense, larger than Terran had imagined. Glowing crystals were embedded in the walls and ceiling, casting soft light that flickered across the smooth stone floor. The shadows that moved along the edges of the room seemed to have a life of their own. They stretched and twisted in strange patterns, following the humans wherever they went. Terran felt the air vibrate with energy, a quiet hum that seemed to come from the stones themselves. Every step echoed in the vast chamber, but the sound was swallowed quickly by the thick, shimmering atmosphere. Myra knelt beside one of the crystals, her fingers hovering just above its surface. "These are not just stones," she said. "They contain energy, maybe knowledge. They are older than anything we have ever seen. The tomb is alive in some way." Rena stepped cautiously forward, her eyes wide. She reached out toward a crystal, and the shadow nearest her stretched tall and thin before returning to its original form. She pulled back quickly, shivering. "They are watching us," she whispered. "They can sense us." Terran nodded. He had felt the same pull. The shadows were intelligent, aware, and patient. They had allowed humans to enter, but they were testing them. A wrong move could trigger something dangerous. "Do not touch anything yet," he instructed. "Observe first. Only act together and carefully. The tomb rewards caution." The team moved further into the chamber. The floor was cold and slightly translucent, and the reflections from the crystals formed patterns across the walls that almost resembled writing. Myra examined these patterns closely. "This is a language of energy," she said. "It carries information about history, instructions, maybe even warnings. We may be able to understand it if we pay attention." As they walked, the shadows drew closer. Some took humanoid forms, their glowing eyes fixed on each member of the team. Terran felt a chill but forced himself to stay calm. Fear was dangerous here. He instructed the team to focus on observation and notice the patterns in the shadows' movements. One of the larger crystals pulsed brighter suddenly, sending a beam of light across the floor. It touched a symbol on the far wall, and the symbol glowed in response. Myra gasped. "The crystals are connected," she said. "They react to each other and to our presence. This tomb is more than a resting place. It is a system designed to teach, to test those who enter." Terran stepped carefully toward the symbol. "The shadows do not attack unless provoked," he said. "They want us to understand, not to destroy. We must act with respect." The shadows shifted again, forming a narrow path toward a stairway carved into the far wall. The steps were wide but smooth, descending into a deeper darkness. Terran led the team down slowly, feeling the tomb's weight pressing around them. The air grew colder and heavier, and the hum from the crystals vibrated through their bones. Every step felt amplified in the stillness. At the bottom, they entered a smaller chamber. Its walls were covered with murals that glowed faintly. Figures in the murals wore strange suits, building massive structures and navigating ships among stars. Terran stared in awe. "This civilization was far beyond us," he whispered. "They explored galaxies, built incredible technology, and recorded everything here." Myra traced her fingers over some of the glowing symbols. "These match the crystal's patterns," she said. "This tomb is not just a place to hide knowledge. It is a teaching tool. The shadows protect it to ensure only those worthy can learn its secrets. Suddenly, one of the shadows moved differently from the others. It separated from the group and stared directly at Terran. He felt a pressure, as if it could see his thoughts. He held his ground, meeting its gaze without fear. Slowly, the shadow stepped back, allowing the team to continue. Terran realized that courage and composure mattered as much as intelligence here. Rena whispered, "They are testing us. Every choice, every step, they are watching." Terran nodded. "Yes. And we are learning. We must remain careful, respectful, and united. Only then can we reach the heart of the tomb." The team moved deeper into the chamber. Each step revealed more murals, crystals, and glowing patterns on the walls. The tomb seemed endless, alive, and intelligent. The shadows moved around them silently, guiding and observing. Terran understood that the tomb was more than a physical space. It was a challenge, a test of humanity's courage, wisdom, and respect for power far beyond their own. After a short pause, Terran looked at his team. "We have passed the first test," he said quietly. "The tomb will demand more. The shadows are not our enemies, but they will watch every choice we make. We must be ready." The team continued forward, feeling both fear and wonder. The tomb pulsed around them with life and knowledge. Each crystal, each shadow, each symbol carried lessons from a civilization older than humanity. Terran knew that the journey had only just begun. The shadows would continue to test them, and the tomb would only reveal its greatest secrets to those who proved themselves worthy. The deeper they moved into the tomb, the colder and heavier the air became. Terran felt a weight on his chest, not from physical strain, but from the presence of the shadows that surrounded them. They no longer lingered at the edges of vision. They moved closer, forming shapes that resembled humans, but their edges flickered and shifted like smoke. The glowing eyes of the figures followed each member of the team, measuring every motion, judging every decision. "Commander," Myra whispered, "I think the shadows are responding to us. They sense our fear, our hesitation. We must stay calm and deliberate." Terran nodded. "We act together. Fear will only make the Guardians test us more harshly. Trust your training and each other." The chamber they entered next was darker, the crystals along the walls casting faint light that barely reached the far corners. Strange murals decorated the walls, showing alien figures lifting massive stones and assembling enormous structures. One figure in a mural held a glowing object similar to the crystals in the room. Terran realized these images were lessons, demonstrating the importance of care, patience, and intelligence in handling powerful knowledge. As the team advanced, one of the shadows stepped forward. It moved with fluid grace, its glowing eyes locked on Terran. He felt a pressure in his mind, a quiet demand to prove himself. The shadow shifted, forming a path deeper into the chamber, but it did not lead straight ahead. Instead, it curved around obstacles, forcing the humans to follow a precise route. Rena looked nervous. "Why is it making us take this path?" she asked. Terran observed the shadow's movement carefully. "It is testing us. It wants to see if we can follow, if we can trust it, and if we can remain calm under pressure. Every step matters." The team continued, stepping lightly over uneven stones and around glowing crystals. Every movement was observed. The shadows followed, some hovering above, others standing silently at the sides. At one point, a human-shaped shadow mirrored Myra's movements exactly. She froze, realizing that the shadows were not just observing, they were learning from them, interacting with them in subtle ways. Suddenly, a low hum filled the chamber. The crystals along the walls pulsed brightly, casting moving patterns of light across the floor. The shadow's eyes glowed brighter in response. It was a warning, a signal that the tomb itself was aware of their presence and ready to test them further. Terran instructed the team to pause. Observe first. Do not rush. The tomb will test us, but only if we act recklessly. Patience and careful thinking are our best tools. The shadows shifted again, forming a corridor of darkness that led to a staircase descending even further. The walls along the corridor were covered with more murals, showing the alien civilization navigating vast starships and exploring distant planets. Terran realized that the tomb's builders valued knowledge above all else. The Guardians were not meant to harm but to ensure that only those who understood responsibility could gain the secrets inside. As they approached the stairs, the shadows' movements became more deliberate, forming shapes that blocked the path until the humans acted correctly. Terran watched carefully, understanding that the tomb tested more than courage. It tested intelligence, patience, and the ability to act as a team. A single wrong step could trigger the Guardians to react, possibly cutting off their progress entirely. Myra stepped forward, analyzing a pattern of crystals on the floor. We must step on them in this order, she said. If we move incorrectly, the Guardians may block us or force us back. Terran nodded and guided the team. Each step was measured and careful. The shadows moved with them, sometimes stretching high, sometimes flattening against the walls. They created a rhythm that the humans had to follow precisely. The tension was high, but the team remained calm and united. After several tense minutes, they reached the bottom of the staircase. The chamber beyond was larger, filled with more glowing crystals and more detailed murals. One wall depicted a star system, showing the civilization's knowledge of planets, moons, and space travel. Terran felt awe and respect. These beings had left a treasure far greater than gold or weapons. They had left wisdom. A shadow approached Terran directly. Its glowing eyes scanned him as if testing his intentions. Terran held his ground. He felt no fear. Instead, he felt determination. Slowly, the shadow moved aside, allowing him and the team to enter. They had passed another test. Rena exhaled in relief. They are guiding us, she said. Not attacking us. Terran nodded. Yes. But the Guardians will continue to test us. We must stay focused. Respect, patience, and courage will guide us through the rest of this tomb. As they moved further into the chamber, Terran realized that the shadows were not enemies. They were protectors, teachers, and guides. The tomb itself was alive, observing the humans, testing them, and preparing to reveal its secrets only to those who proved worthy. Humanity had begun its trial. And Terran knew that the true challenge still lay ahead, deeper in the heart of the tomb. The chamber they entered was unlike anything the team had ever seen. The walls glowed with panels of light, showing images of stars, planets, and strange alien machines. Crystals embedded in the floor and ceiling pulsed with energy, forming patterns that seemed to shift and change as the humans moved. The air was heavy, vibrating with knowledge and power. Terran could feel it pressing gently against his mind, almost as if the tomb was speaking to him. Myra approached one of the glowing panels, her fingers tracing the symbols. These are records, she said in awe. They show the history of a civilization older than humanity. They explored galaxies, built massive structures, and traveled through space with technology far beyond anything we have. The tomb holds not only their secrets but their lessons. Terran looked around, taking in the magnitude of what they had found. This is more than a tomb, he said. It is a library, a guide, and a test. The shadows were not here to scare us. They were here to ensure that only those who could understand responsibility would reach this place. Rena approached cautiously, her eyes wide. "Commander, look at this," she said, pointing to a series of crystals that floated slightly above the floor. Each crystal contained glowing symbols, and as she moved closer, the symbols rearranged themselves into shapes she could recognize. "It is like they are teaching us their language, piece by piece." Terran stepped forward to examine the crystals. He could feel the energy flowing from them, connecting to the murals on the walls. The patterns were not random, they told a story of a civilization that had reached incredible heights but had understood the need for caution and wisdom. "This knowledge is not just about technology," Terran said. "It is about understanding. About knowing how to use power responsibly." Myra nodded. "The shadows are part of that understanding. They are not enemies. They are teachers. They test us to see if we can act with courage, intelligence, and respect. If we fail, the knowledge will remain hidden. If we succeed, we can carry it forward for humanity." The shadows moved closer, watching their reactions. One figure extended an arm toward a floating crystal, and Terran realized it was inviting them to interact carefully. The team hesitated, understanding the significance of the moment. Each member reached out in turn, touching the crystals with care. As they did, images of alien worlds, starships, and scientific concepts filled their minds. It was overwhelming, yet enlightening. Terran felt a sense of awe. The civilization that built this tomb had achieved incredible knowledge, yet they had designed the tomb to ensure that only those who respected the power could access it. He understood the lesson: knowledge alone was dangerous. Wisdom must guide it. Rena looked at Terran, her eyes shining. "We can learn so much," she said. "We can take this back and help humanity, but only if we remember the lessons of this place. We must be careful." Myra smiled. "Exactly. This is not a treasure to hoard. It is guidance. It is knowledge to be used wisely, shared carefully, and respected always." The team moved deeper into the chamber, guided by the soft glow of the crystals. At the center of the room, a massive crystalline structure pulsed with light. It seemed alive, and Terran could feel its energy resonating with the tomb itself. The murals surrounding it depicted the alien civilization sharing knowledge, teaching others, and exploring the galaxy peacefully. Terran realized that the tomb's true purpose was not to hide the civilization's achievements but to ensure that anyone who discovered them could carry the knowledge forward responsibly. The shadows were the guardians of that responsibility. They would allow access only to those who proved themselves worthy through courage, patience, and understanding. The team gathered around the central crystal, careful not to touch it too abruptly. Images flowed into their minds, showing calculations, star maps, and techniques for building and exploring safely. Terran felt a sense of clarity he had never experienced before. The tomb was revealing itself slowly, as if testing their ability to receive knowledge without being overwhelmed. Rena whispered, "It feels alive. Like it knows what we are thinking." Terran nodded. "It is alive in a way, but it responds to our actions, our choices, and our intentions. That is why the shadows are here. They are the measure of our character." Myra traced a line of symbols on the central crystal. The civilization wanted to teach responsibility, not just power. They understood that knowledge without wisdom is dangerous. That is the lesson of this tomb. Terran looked at his team and smiled. "We have reached a turning point. We have learned not only about their technology but about what it means to be worthy of it." The shadows have allowed us this far because we have acted with courage, patience, and respect. If we continue carefully, we can unlock the greatest secrets of this place. The chamber pulsed brighter, and the shadows seemed to recede slightly, allowing the team to explore further. Terran knew that the knowledge they were gaining could transform humanity. But he also understood the responsibility that came with it. The tomb had tested them, and they had passed. Now, the real journey would begin, carrying this wisdom forward without losing sight of the lessons the shadows had taught them. The team stood before the massive central crystal, its soft light illuminating the entire chamber. The air hummed with energy, and Terran could feel the tomb's awareness pressing against his mind. The shadows that had guided and tested them moved silently around the edges of the room, watching, waiting. Their glowing eyes followed every motion, measuring courage, intelligence, and character. Terran knew they were approaching the tomb's greatest test. Myra studied the crystal closely. "This is more than technology," she said. "It shows visions, predictions, possibilities. Look here." She pointed to a scene within the crystal. It showed humanity exploring the stars, building colonies, and advancing science. In another frame, she saw wars, greed, and destruction. The crystal was revealing the consequences of choices. Terran nodded slowly. "The tomb is teaching us one final lesson. It is showing us that knowledge is power, but power without responsibility can destroy everything. We must decide how we will carry this knowledge forward." Rena shivered. "How do we know what is right?" she asked. "It feels overwhelming. The crystal shows so much at once." Terran placed a hand on her shoulder. "We know because we have learned to act with courage, patience, and respect. We have passed the tests of the shadows. Now it is about intention. What we do next will determine whether we are worthy of this knowledge." The shadows moved closer, forming a circle around the central crystal. Their glow intensified slightly, signaling that the moment of choice had arrived. The team stood together, understanding that they could not take the knowledge for themselves alone. The tomb demanded unity, wisdom, and care for the greater good. Myra stepped forward. "We can take this knowledge back to humanity. But we must do it carefully. Share what is necessary, use it to guide, not to dominate. That is how we honor the tomb and the civilization that built it." Terran looked at each member of his team. "Are we ready?" he asked. "This is not just about survival. It is about who we are and who we want humanity to become. The shadows will judge our intentions." The shadows shifted in response, forming a narrow path toward the far end of the chamber. There, a smaller crystal pulsed with energy, seemingly inviting them closer. Terran understood that this was the culmination of their journey. To proceed meant accepting responsibility for the knowledge they were about to carry into the universe. He stepped forward first, followed by Myra, Rena, and the rest of the team. As they approached the crystal, the visions within the central crystal intensified. They showed advanced starships, exploration of distant worlds, and discoveries beyond imagination. But intertwined with these visions were warnings: misuse of knowledge could lead to ruin, conflict, and loss. Terran felt the weight of responsibility pressing heavily on his shoulders. Myra placed her hand on the crystal. Symbols glowed beneath her fingers, rearranging into patterns that she could understand. "The tomb is responding to us," she said. "It recognizes our intention to use this knowledge wisely. It is granting us access." The shadows seemed to ripple in approval. Their glowing eyes softened, and for the first time, Terran felt that they were no longer a threat. They were witnesses, affirming that the humans had passed the ultimate test. Rena looked around, awe in her eyes. "We did it. The tomb trusts us." Terran nodded. "Yes. But trust must be honored. We cannot let fear, greed, or pride guide our actions. This knowledge is a responsibility, not a reward." The team carefully began to interact with the central crystal, learning from the visions and energy patterns. They understood advanced techniques for travel, communication, and resource management, all designed for peaceful exploration and growth. Each piece of knowledge came with a reminder of caution and wisdom. The tomb had ensured that only those who could handle it responsibly would succeed. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The humans absorbed as much as they could, taking careful notes and memorizing patterns. The tomb seemed satisfied. The shadows receded slightly, guiding the team toward the exit, signaling that their trial was ending. Terran took a deep breath, looking back at the glowing walls and the pulsing crystals. "This is the beginning of something greater," he said. "Humanity has been given a chance to rise, not just in strength, but in wisdom. We must honor the lessons of this tomb and the guardians who protected it." Myra smiled softly. "We have learned more than technology. We have learned about responsibility, courage, and respect for knowledge. That is the true treasure of this place." As they prepared to leave, the central crystal pulsed one final time, a quiet affirmation that they had passed the tomb's ultimate challenge. The shadows lingered a moment longer, then slowly dissolved back into the walls, their watch complete. Humanity had been tested, and it had passed. Terran felt hope and determination fill him. The tomb had guarded its secrets well, but now those secrets would guide humanity forward. The team stepped carefully toward the exit, ready to bring the wisdom of the past into the future. The shadows were gone, but their lesson remained: true power comes with responsibility, and only those who act with courage, patience, and respect can carry it safely. The team stepped carefully through the final passage of the tomb. The soft glow from the crystals faded, replaced by the pale light of Vera's misty valley. Terran inhaled deeply, feeling the fresh air fill his lungs. The shadows that had guided and tested them throughout the tomb were gone, but their presence lingered in memory. The lessons, the trials, and the knowledge they had gained weighed on the team, but it was a weight they were ready to carry. Myra looked at the valley, her eyes wide with wonder. "We made it," she said quietly. "We have seen and learned things humanity could never imagine. The tomb trusted us, and we cannot fail it now." Rena nodded, still shivering from the intensity of the experience. "The shadows, they were never trying to harm us. They were guiding us, teaching us. I understand that now. Everything in the tomb has meaning, every test, every warning." Terran's gaze swept across the plateau. The tomb lay hidden behind them, a fortress of knowledge guarded by intelligence beyond comprehension. He felt awe and respect for the ancient civilization that had built it, and gratitude for the shadows that had ensured only the worthy could learn its secrets. "The tomb has given us a gift," he said. "Not just knowledge, but wisdom. It has shown us what it means to be responsible, and how humanity can rise if we choose to act wisely." The team began the journey back to their spacecraft. Every step felt lighter than before, though the valley was still uneven and the mist thick. Each member moved with purpose and focus, aware that they carried a responsibility far greater than themselves. The tomb had tested them in mind, body, and character, and they had passed. As they approached their ship, Terran reflected on what they had learned. Advanced technology, interstellar maps, and scientific techniques were all remarkable, but the tomb had given them something far more valuable: the understanding that knowledge without wisdom could destroy as easily as it could create. The shadows had proven that courage, patience, and respect were as important as intellect. Myra turned to Terran. The data we gathered, the lessons we learned, everything can help humanity advance. But we must be careful. We cannot rush, and we cannot let ambition blind us. Terran nodded. We will move carefully. We will teach what is necessary, guide progress responsibly, and respect the principles the tomb has shown us. Humanity's future depends on how we act from here. Rena glanced back at the valley. I never thought I would see something so powerful. I feel changed. We all do. The tomb, it has made us stronger, wiser. We understand now that power is not for domination, but for growth. The team boarded the spacecraft, carefully lifting off from the plateau. As they rose above the valley, Terran looked down at the tomb, still hidden beneath layers of mist and shadow. It seemed almost alive, a guardian of knowledge waiting for the next generation ready to face its tests. The thought brought him hope. Humanity would one day reach such challenges, and perhaps they too would be judged worthy. Inside the ship, the team reviewed their data, ensuring that every symbol, every pattern, and every lesson from the tomb was recorded. They worked together, each member contributing their understanding, their perspective, and their caution. The tomb's teachings shaped their approach. They were explorers, not conquerors. Scholars, not opportunists. The shadow's lessons were guiding every action. Hours later, the ship reached orbit, and the valley of Vero became a small patch of green and gray below them. Terran looked out at the stars, imagining the civilizations waiting to be discovered, the mysteries still hidden in the galaxy. The tomb had taught them humility, respect, and responsibility. Humanity had been tested and had passed, but the real journey was only beginning. Myra smiled, glancing at the team. We have a chance to do something incredible, she said. The tomb gave us knowledge, but it also gave us guidance. We must use it wisely, or the shadow's lessons will have been in vain. Terran's hand rested on the controls. We will. Humanity can rise, explore, and grow if we carry this wisdom forward. The tomb has shown us what is possible when knowledge is tempered with courage and responsibility. The shadows will always be a reminder of that lesson. As the ship moved through space toward the next destination, Terran felt a quiet sense of triumph and determination. The tomb had challenged them, guided them, and taught them. Now, the responsibility to honor its lessons rested with them. Humanity had been given a gift beyond measure, and it was up to them to ensure that it was used wisely. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of mystery, challenge, and opportunity. And Terran knew, with certainty, that humanity was ready to face whatever lay ahead, carrying the lessons of the shadows into a future built on courage, wisdom, and respect. The tomb of Vera remained behind, silent, hidden, and eternal, a guardian of knowledge and a witness to the first humans brave enough to prove themselves worthy. The shadows had disappeared, but their lesson remained: greatness requires responsibility, and only those who act with wisdom and courage can shape the future.